In many African communities, girls are socialized to be submissive and unquestioning. This undermines their participation in the classroom and ultimately affects their performance in national examinations. Fawe believes that in order to improve gender relations, girls and boys must be part of the effort to eliminate the discrimination and inequalities they face within their schools and communities. But for this to happen, they know they first have to be empowered to speak up for themselves. This is the basis of Fawe's Tuseme Youth Empowerment Model. Tuseme is a Swahili word which translates to "let us speak out." The model is aimed at enhancing girls' self-esteem, leadership, social and life skills, and promotes a positive attitude amongst boys towards girls' education. It was initiated in 1996 at the University of Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and initially focused on girls, but Fawe realized early on that a gender approach is necessary to address the educational needs of both boys and girls. Fawe's motivation behind the program is its belief that when girls are empowered to speak up for themselves, they can overcome gender-based constraints, especially those imposed by culture and tradition. The boys in Tuseme clubs have been educated on matters of gender, inclusivity, and equity in advancing the rights of girls' education. Through drama, song, and creative arts, they learn negotiation skills, how to speak out, self-confidence, decision-making, and leadership skills. The training helps girls and boys identify and understand the problems that affect them, articulate these problems, and take action to solve them.
The girls and ensure that they return to school and stay within the school system. As such, social stigma continues to be high and the problem persists. And evidence also shows that emergencies and crises such as COVID-19 and Ebola have exacerbated adolescent pregnancy and school dropout, particularly due to school closures and restrictions in movement that increase the vulnerabilities of adolescent girls. In Malawi, between March to July of 2020, which was the first wave of COVID-19, the Ministry of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare commissioned a rapid assessment on child marriage and teen pregnancy in the wake of the outbreak of COVID-19. And their data showed cumulatively that over 44,000 cases of teen pregnancies were recorded and over 20,000 cases of child marriage. And also findings from other research shows that COVID-19 is continued to worsen an already existing problem. And according to World Vision International, teen pregnancy threatens to block about 1 million girls across sub-Saharan Africa from returning to school. And so thinking about the issue of school dropout and adolescent pregnancy with the focus on Southern Africa while centering on the case of Malawi, this study seeks to examine and address the barriers to school re-entry affecting pregnant learners and school-aged mothers. It also seeks to identify a support framework that ensures continued learning and an enabling policy environment. And so speaking specifically to my positionality and my background and what has influenced the work that I do as an interdisciplinary educational researcher, in this work, I locate myself as an African woman from Malawi who was born and raised in a former British colony situated in Southern Africa. I also co-founded a nonprofit organization in Malawi that works with pregnant learners and school-aged mothers. And I am a daughter of a woman who returned to secondary school while pregnant and as a mother of 3 children. And this is why I'm interested in exploring in-school pregnancy and student motherhood. And so this study utilizes a mixed methods participatory social justice design that places emphasis on the qualitative methods. And so for my project, I utilized photo voice as my qualitative method. And for this presentation, I'll only focus on the photo voice aspect of the study. And so just to offer a bit of a background, photo voice is a form of participatory action research whose methods of data collection involve the use of photographic techniques. And so usually participants are given cameras to be able to capture the photo data and images that represent their experience. And Usually, photo voice is seen as a tool for raising awareness and informing policymakers about societal issues, and then they work together with participants to identify solutions. And so, as you can see on your screen, I conducted a survey with 100 young women in Mangochi, Malawi, where I did my study. And after the survey, I worked with 25 young women for photo voice. And on the screen, there's a picture of a classroom block, and that's part of the data that the young women captured. And for them, that represents a barrier to schooling. And there's a quote with the photo that the participant wrote, and I'll read it, and it says, in Chichewa, tikabwerera ku skulu kwa anthu amene ali ndi mwana kapena pakati anzathu kapena aphunzitsi amatinena ndiye sitifuna kupita ku school, which translates to, when we return to school, for people who have a child or are pregnant, our friends or our teachers mock us, so we don't want to go to school anymore. And then in terms of participation criteria for selecting young women to participate in this study, participation was restricted to Malawian young women aged 13 or older in Mangochi. They had to be currently pregnant or young mothers at the time of the study, and they had to be of primary or secondary school status when they got pregnant or became young mothers, and they should have returned to school or failed to return to school after the pregnancy. And so in terms of the photo voice process, I conducted training with the young women to ensure that they understand what photo voice was as a methodology, and being able to collectively identify prompts that we could use to conduct the photo capturing. And then after that, we went into the community to capture images that represent their experience. And I also conducted focus group discussions with the participants, followed by semi-structured interviews. And after that, we did a photo exhibition where we showcased all the images to the community members and invited teachers, head teachers, policymakers, and various community members to have conversation around the photos. And the photo on your screen was captured by a participant as a barrier to re-entry. And she captioned it saying, ndimakhala bize kunyanja kujaba zovala ngakhale matewera kupangitsa kuti kukhale kovuta kubwerera ku school, which translates to, I'm always busy at the lake washing the baby's diapers, making it difficult for me to return to school. And so just offering a bit of a background to the Malawi readmission policy, for part of this paper, I looked at the genesis of the Malawi readmission policy and its timeline. And I looked at the incidents and issues related to in-school pregnancy from the early 1990s all the way through the current 2018 policy and its guidelines. And as I looked at the document, I identified the policy's opportunities and limitations. And in terms of its one of its biggest opportunities is this policy really offered the legal basis to readmit girls who were pregnant back into the school system, which was something that really did not exist prior to 1993. And then also it aligns with Malawi's national and international development goals. However, some of the challenges might be the lack of clarity, but also little to no recognition of policy flouting, where there are cases where within individual schools, some educators might not specifically follow the policy, making it difficult for young women to return, and also the language around once in a lifetime opportunity, where if a girl becomes pregnant a second time, it becomes really difficult for them to go back to school. For the conceptual framework, this study uses Ubuntu, also known as Umuntu in our native tongue Chichewa, and it is a post-colonial philosophy that originates from the Bantu, or the native people of Southern Africa. And so in this study, Ubuntu discusses the African philosophy of humanness and centers on individuals' humanity and sense of self that is rooted in the common bonds among people, in society, as well as the communitarian approaches that governs the social, political, spiritual, and moral spheres of society. And so some of the key principles and values that inform this study include respect and dignity, equity and compassion, inclusion and acceptance, mutually beneficial relationships, and interdependency and collaboration. And so I wanted to emphasize that Ubuntu is not only central in many African belief systems, but it is also foundational in education, primarily through its focus on building relationships in learning spaces where this process is interdependent and mutually beneficial. And so from the data, I wanted to offer this visualization that discusses the structure of support that these young women in the study highlighted. And so the support structure discusses the themes that demonstrate the power that pushes the young women to remain determined and to push toward their goal of returning to school or remaining in school, regardless of the challenges that they experience during and after pregnancy. The findings indicate that these forms of support are not mutually exclusive, meaning that they need to happen at the same time for the support to be impactful on the young women's return and retention in school. So once this support is consolidated and established, it is able to overpower the existing restraining forces that would otherwise prevent the young women from returning to school. And drawing from Ubuntu, the framework also highlights the complex interactions across the different types of support and the interdependence between schools, families, and communities to ensure effective and holistic support for teen mothers. And so to provide you with context and to fully situate the support structure, it is important for us to look at some of the challenges and restraining forces that young women highlighted in this study. And some of the challenges include abandonment and family-related challenges, where some girls discussed that they were forced into marriages and some were left alone at birth. And so just that experience of being abandoned was really difficult for them, and for some they eventually never went back to school. And then also societal stigma that was happening both in school and at home was really a restraining factor. Some girls shared that they were accused of promiscuity, and some would choose to eventually go to a boarding school in a different district as a way of running away from the shame and to save face. And so, and even some girls shared that they functioned in secrecy and duplicity by hiding their motherhood status, even when they go to a new school, because of the fear of rejection and discrimination. And the picture that I'm showing on the screen was also captured by a participant to represent a barrier. And they captioned it saying that chochinga changa ndichakuti ndikukanika kulowa mkalasi chifukwa ndili ndi pakati, which translates to my primary challenge is that I'm failing to go back to school because I am pregnant and I'm not allowed to attend classes.
Thank you, Dr. Pempho. You
So
have
for the
1
purposes
minute
of this
to go.
presentation, I'm only going to focus more on the school-based supports. And so the school-based support theme discusses the essential strategies within school spaces. And although it is not exhaustive, they are representative of the key components that supported young women in this study to return to school and stay within the school system. Most of the participants enrolled in night school upon re-entry, and they highlighted that they experienced little to no stigma being a mother within a night school setting, due to the open and welcoming nature of the learning space. And participants also shared that night schools demonstrated a form of radical inclusivity by intentionally including all people, including those who are traditionally left at the margins within the school spaces, such as student mothers. And so night schools in this study centered on the Ubuntu-centric values of respect and dignity by establishing a fluid definition of who a learner should be within the space, regardless of their motherhood or pregnancy status, as well as age. And so I have Agnes here. I have a quote from her, and she said that, no, there was no challenges related to teachers within the night school setting, and they just received me as at the school and told me that I shouldn't do it again. They did not even say anything that was mocking or insulting. In contrast, I have Jimwemwe, who re-entered a regular boarding school, and she shared that teachers and school matrons who were in charge of residential life would mockingly act like they were showing the young woman some form of respect, yet it was a scornful way.
Dr. Pempho, time
Yes.
is not on our side. I would allow the participants, the
the
discussant,
discussant
to
to
on
react
the
on
part of
the
the
part of
paper.
the paper.
And
And
if there is anything,
if there
probably
is
then we will
anything, probably
address
then we
from the
will
remaining part.
address
Thank
from
you.
the remaining part. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. I take this opportunity to invite the discussant. I will start with the representative from the discussant from Zambia. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation, which was spot on. I think even for the Zambian scenario, we do agree with what has been discussed. Allow me to make contributions on two fronts. One, the problem of teenage pregnancies. Yes, it is very high. For example, the Zambian scenario is that every year we lose 16,400 girls to teenage pregnancies. And out of that, less than half, to be specific, 48% are able to go back to school through the re-entry policy. So you can see that out of pregnancies, we have more than half of the girls who never return or who never go back to school, which is worrisome. The question is, where do these girls go? So instead of to continue lamenting, I think we should begin to find solutions. And what I see to be one of the solutions is the introduction of comprehensive sexuality education in schools. And this kind of education basically provides information and knowledge on sexual reproductive health. And this information actually is scientifically accurate, information which is culturally accepted, information which is age appropriate. Believe me, we have parents who are busy. They have no time to talk to their children about these issues. And we think that they learn about them from school. But if there is no CSE from schools, in schools, then we are having children who do not have accurate information on sexual reproductive health, and will continue having these teen pregnancies. On the same issue of teenage pregnancies, I think that involvement of various leaders in the communities, traditional leaders, religious leaders, civic leaders, I think this can also help to eliminate this problem. Let me talk about the re-entry policy. At secondary school education in Zambia, the gender parity index is 0.94, meaning that we have more boys than girls in school. And one of the drivers to this problem is the issue of teenage pregnancies. Like I said, that only 48% of the girls that get pregnant go back to school. And some of the challenges that we have very quickly, one is unwillingness of some faith-based schools to allow the girls to go back to those schools on the premise that those are Christian schools, and once someone has sinned, they can't allow them to go back. But you and I, we know that in the same communities, when a fully grown-up person commits adultery, they are just censured maybe for 1 year, they are rebaptized, and they are allowed to continue performing church functions. But why should we say that for a girl child who perhaps was just coerced to have sex, or maybe as a result of gender-based violence gets pregnant, we say they should not go back to school? I think this challenge, we need to address it, and what I want to recommend is that those of us, we have the re-entry policy. Can we advocate so that these re-entry policies become law? For example, it can be a statutory instrument to compel every duty bearer to ensure that once a child gets pregnant, they can be given a chance to reclaim their school places. I do agree with the findings from Malawi, issues of girls, teen mothers failing to cope. You have a child and you must attend class, you must attend to the needs of the child. It is a challenge, the stigma at school, the cost of education also. So I think the solution to this, we need comprehensive support for the girl child. Let's take them to be extraordinary children who require a little bit more than a child who has no baby. I had a lot, but I'll end here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that contribution. We can ponder over it. We have comprehensive sexual education, and we have multi-sectoral approach on this issue of teenage girls. Let's hear from an organization, Kenya, where these girls are their babies are domiciled for those who have re-entered the school. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Good morning. Oh, it's still morning. My name is Elizabeth. I am the founder of an organization called Serene Haven Kenya. Serene Haven is working towards empowering teenage moms, and toward that we have a shelter for teenage mothers, because the paper was comprehensive. I think she captured all the problems that teenage mothers have, but there's one thing that we did not ask ourselves when we said, let all our girls go back to school. Question number one is, where is she leaving the baby as she's going back to school? Because I feel like we are all about the girl, let her go back to school, let her go back to school. But for us here who are mothers, we know that that bond does not break the moment you walk out of that door. If your baby is in trouble right now, when you are seated here, you know he or she is in trouble. You don't even need to take your phone, you already know. So for us, what we have done is we've come up with a solution. We started a shelter. We house our girls. But again, how many girls can we house in Kenya? Like throughout this school term, we only had 15. Because the more the number of the girls, the more we need more resources to take care of them. But I feel like our solutions first will start by accepting that teenage pregnancies are here, and they are not just hiding our head in the sand and saying our girls are not getting pregnant. And I keep telling people, the first thing we need to accept is that our children are having sex. You know, when we accept that, it's easy to move on. Then from there, how do we address this issue? The pregnancy is already here. So how do we deal with this? Girls who come from well-up families don't drop out of school even when they get pregnant. Actually, the neighbor might not even know that this girl got pregnant. True or false? But a girl from that poor background gets pregnant, is stigmatized by the whole community, she drops out of school, she gets married because she will meet a man who will tell her, I'll take care of you together with your baby. Then 2 days later, or 2 years later, she has another baby, then she's thrown out. So the cycle will continue. She'll continue being poor, and without an education and without a skill, you know, even her baby is likely to become a teenage mother. We have, so far since we started Serene Haven in 2020, we have worked with about 158 girls in the center. They come and go in the center, and out of all those girls, 3/4 of them are from single mothers. Single mother. So the cycle did not break because this single mother did not go to school. And this single mother was a teenage mother. Now those are statistics from my work that I have, you know, things that I have seen on a day-to-day. So for me, I feel like our solutions first will come when we accept. Secondly, we need to have more daycare centers, because this girl has to have a safe space to leave her baby. For her to concentrate, to be able to go through school, knowing that her baby is secure, that makes them go back to school, and they're able to be very, very competitive, and they also make good grades. These girls are intelligent. They are very, very bright girls. So, okay.
We have gotten the point, isn't it? The girls need a safe haven for their babies, isn't it? Thank you. We also need to get a response from one of the principals in Kenya, where he has had the experience of girls becoming pregnant in schools, isn't it? So, Madam, I bring you on board. You'll say your name, your school, and then you respond to that paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Rhoda Nalianya, a head teacher of a primary school that is integrated a school with learners with physical impairments and the other learners that are normal in quotes. So I want to really appreciate this forum for the support that they've continued giving us. Actually, my school is, I'd wish to share my experience. My school is at a central place where we are in a sub-county headquarters, and it houses, or it has learners from backgrounds that are shaky, backgrounds that are poverty-stricken, and therefore you can imagine what the girls go through. So I want to support, to really appreciate FAWE for the support they've continued giving us since they came on board, I think 3 years ago in our county. I actually was awarded head teacher because I had so many cases of pregnancies. And since FAWE came on board, we have this program of Imarisha Msichana, where the girls talk. And I want to appreciate the speaker who laid the foundation of this talk about having the girls having time to talk for themselves and speak out what they feel and what they are going through. So through Marisha, my girls have really improved, and I would wish to report here that access, transition, retention has really improved through that club. We also have Tuseme Club, where we have put the boys on board, and they speak out on behalf of the girls. I would really want to share an experience where a boy came and told me, teacher, my cousin has been walking around with boda boda. He escorts him home and he brings him to school. And he tells me, teacher, I've told you because you said we protect our girls. Wasn't that nice? So I felt Tuseme is also helping our boys support the girls, and therefore I encourage other head teachers to have Tuseme, to have Imarisha. I wish to also share that the other day we had KCP, and this year I'm sorry to report that I had 3 pregnancies, 2 class 8s and 1 grade 6 girl. But the 3 of them sat the exam. That was very positive to my side because I wanted 100% transition. Now, a speaker has just spoken here about the girl child or the teenage mother.
Knowledge area in the papers, isn't it? So I'll call upon the next presenter. Otherwise, thank you, Dr. Pempho, for the paper. We have 2 more papers to be done. So if there is time, we'll be able to give you. You can hang in. Thank you. Let's listen to the next paper of by Rogasia Massue, addressing the increasing number of teenage pregnancies and Dr. Elizabeth, kindly come on.
Okay. Is it afternoon? Yes, good afternoon. Yes, let me welcome those who are not from our country. Like I had yesterday, just look over and be entertained by our wildlife which is within the city. Now, I am Pauline Mudeu, a high school teacher in an extra-county school in Kajiado North by the name Enomatasia Girls. It is a school that houses about 1,500 girls. And let me say, the topic that we have today is very dear to us because the issues that we are discussing today are very common to us, and we cannot say it is happening in other areas. We have been affected directly. As I say so, being a teacher of girls, I must say we have had many experiences, and many of those experiences I will talk about later because they touch so much, not just on the girls alone, but also the mothers. Let me take a step backward, first of all, to put things right. I'm not Dr. Elizabeth. I'm only reading the paper on her behalf, a paper that was authored by Dr. Elizabeth, a consultant, Skyrockers, Trainers, Kenya, Teresa Omondi, Forum for African Women Educationalists, FAWE, and Dr. Edward Obajo, the Aga Khan University, Kenya. So I agreed to present this paper because I felt it touches so much on some of the daily things that we wake up to. Our girls need support. They need a lot of support because if I must say something very briefly about my experiences in the school, I must say this year alone, we had more than 10 girls falling pregnant. And some of the cases are so pathetic because like when the parents are called and like in Massue land, the women are kind of downtrodden. And when you call the parent to school, it is the father who comes. And when the father gets to know you're calling them because their daughters have fallen pregnant, the first thing is to assault. You now become the savior of a girl who is pregnant. The parent has come. Instead of discussing the issue, the person wants to assault the girl. And from assaulting the girl, when the man goes back home, that is what we are told, the mother is in for it. So this is a problem that needs so much attention because with such case scenarios, then we know our girls are not going to go very far. Now, I also consider myself as FAWE behind scenes because, okay. Yes, because I've also been so much concerned about any girl who comes to my, who falls into my hands. Like some of those girls, I had to escort some to their homes because if you allow the girl to go alone, she might not even go home. She might go to seek shelter in a place where nobody is likely to trace her. Now, the reason why we are looking at the figures that are worrying, especially in our country. The reason why we look at it, we're looking at it from a backdrop of some figures that are worrying. For example, the percentage of women aged 15 to 19 who have ever been pregnant. When we look at Kenya, in Samburu, 50%, West Pokot, 36%, Marsabit, 29%, Narok, 28%, Meru, 24%, Homa Bay, 23%, Migori, 23%, Kajiado, 22%, Siaya, 21%, and Baringo, 20%. So, looking at that, we have a reason to worry. Now let's look at the background. The background. UNICEF, according to UNICEF, in 2021, 23%, there was 23% increase in teenage pregnancy among girls aging to 10 to 24 years. And these ones are the only ones who were recorded as seeking prenatal care. So you can imagine the situation about those others who never went to seek prenatal care. NTV News on 12 November 2023, it reported that in Bungoma, 50 girls in the same school fell pregnant, and it is something that shocked the whole country. They called it Somo la Maisha. Then the COVID-19 pandemic opened people's eyes to the challenge of girls' abuse in homes, schools, and communities. Then the temporary school closures around the world made teenage pregnancy a silent pandemic. Then the question comes, what role can boys and men play in championing the rights of girls' education through re-entry policy? Through the re-entry policy. Study methodology. There was rigorous literature review methodology, then analysis and synthesis of relevant literature to articulate and describe in depth the re-entry policy in different African countries. Also, the study interviewed men from different countries in Africa to give their voice, that is, their opinions on re-entry policy and as a way forward in dealing with pregnant girls, including their going back to school. Then, we're looking at the definition of re-entry policy. Re-entry policy is a strategy many governments in Africa and beyond employ to offer support to the huge numbers of pregnant school girls at risk of not completing education due to teenage pregnancy. It gives It also gives official legal backup to unconditional readmission of teen mothers into primary or secondary schools after delivery. That is from the Ministry of Education 2006, UNESCO 2004, Girls Center 2022. It gives measures to prevent schools and community leaders from excluding young mothers from furthering their education. And it is also used by education ministries in Africa to demystify teenage pregnancy and schooling. REP also advocates the importance of girls' education. Then, the situations or the challenges which force girls to require re-entry policy. Under this, we have early pregnancy and early marriage. We have poverty, menstrual poverty, gender-based violence. We have gender roles. Anytime a girl delivers, that is something that we know. The whole world thinks that she should stop everything and focus on child care. But one has to remember, she is not the only parent. The boy continues as the girl stops to take care of the child. Yes, girls turning down re-entry chances. We also have cases where the chances are there, but the girls will turn them down or will not be willing to re-enter school. So we are looking at other reasons why girls may not return to school even with REP in place. That is according to Bada and Nowanga 2017. Number one, restrictive mentor models, which can limit a girl's ability to enact her right to return to school. Number 2, pregnancy cases caused by rape or abuse. And in such cases, not all girls are able to seek legal justice. And this is due to poverty or ignorance, or both. Next, head teachers and parents not necessarily ready to pursue the matter for fear of stoking enmities with hope that the offender will marry the girl. Next, early marriages. Pregnant girls are forced into marriage to avoid stigma in school and community. You know, if you are the parent and your girl has given birth, you send her to the owner of the bag, if I should say that. Then the last one is challenges of childcare. Challenges of the childcare in many African settings. It is the role of the mother to take care of the child. It is cultural. That is what is accepted. That is what is accepted, that a man cannot take care of a child. It is only a mother who can do it. Then we have support programs for teenage mothers, and they include childcare services, counseling programs, engaging student mothers to identify their own goals and how to achieve them. That is academic and vocational skills. Then mentorship programs are in place, financial support through bursaries and scholarships for vulnerable girls. Then scenarios of rape practices in selected African countries. Here we are taking case studies in Kenya, Zambia, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and Lesotho. And which lessons do we have? We have a report that African countries lack uniformity. They lack uniformity when applying rape in schools. This is according to Nafungo 2022. Another point is that countries lack holistic support programs for teenage mothers. For example, we have lack of lactation rooms in schools. Next, we have lack of clear guidelines to schools, families, and the teenagers and the teenage mothers on the process of readmission. That is according to FAWE and UNICEF 204. And lastly, countries getting serious about gender equity and inclusion in education, rep, and strengthening gender equity, including people with disability. Sorry. Now, the question is, what works? What works? And we also consider men or boy voices, their voices concerning the issue of girls' pregnancy. That is re-entry policy plus, that is boys, men voices. So, why do we involve male genders in women issues? That is one of the questions. Oh, okay. So, the question is, why the male gender in women issues? Number 2, boy and men are the other part of teenage pregnancy. Next, we have talked to girls and women so much, but we seem not to be making any progress. There is a rise in teenage pregnancies despite talking to the female gender for the longest time. So there is need to involve and listen to boys and men. They may have a solution. Then the need for inclusivity in teenage motherhood, work with boys and men, involve all people such as fathers, teachers, community leaders, and other stakeholders. That is according to Population Council, Kenya 2023. Then the voices of men and boys in countries like Kenya, they say you use men as champions to defend girls and their rights. Then you raise awareness of the legal consequences, especially of gender-based violence and making teenagers pregnant. Then give comprehensive sex education and human rights. Next, support girls' education at all costs. Nigeria, employ the metaphor of eat their prey. The concept of decent sugar daddies. Sugar daddies will help learners and girls without strings attached, or male relatives to offer support to girls. Promote positive Yes. Promote positive guidance and support to teenage mothers. Zimbabwe, start honest male dialogue, that is, embrace positive change. Do not take advantage of girls. Next, men to discuss possible punishments or penalties to sexual violence. Next, men's fight for teenage mothers' rights to education. Next, men as protective warriors of their communities and girls, not just animals and property. And then UNFPA 2020, ending gender-based violence or sexual-based violence requires open discussions about stereotypes and norms, because it is not a girl's nor a woman's problem. It is an entire society's problem. Zambia focus on shifting the influential role of men's voices, stop sexual abuses, that is the word. Men's program to create awareness and advocacy by other men against teenage pregnancies. Let male offender face legal consequences. Use media initiatives to hold perpetrators accountable. I'm rushing. Then lessons for teenage motherhood, banning boarding schools in order to allow families to supervise their children. Have safe centers for girls who are chased from home. Opening a daycare center in schools or colleges or near the educational institutions. Next, advance the well-being and human rights of babies and toddlers. And lastly, support young mothers to learn about their new responsibilities. That is the end. Time is not on our side. Thank you so much. Asanteni sana.
Pauline. Let us clap for Pauline for having presented the paper from Dr. Elizabeth, isn't it? But at least you've been able to understand the voices from various countries, isn't it? I would say this. We had a lot of technicalities in these presentations, isn't it? One, I'll ask you to forgive us. And I will reward you after forgiving us. Ensure that the paper going around is well signed, your name and your contact. It's going round. Make sure that if you are a participant here, you record your name. I'm asking the technical team. These papers are very critical to them, because I know people are going to use those papers. They are going to get gaps for them, for their market research and other researches, and also to assist our girls, isn't it? You're going to be sent for those papers. I don't know how long we can go so that we give to this our participants at least a minute, one of them to represent them and say something, isn't it? Wow. Because it's a majorly the women voices, I will give to a male so that he can speak on your behalf.
Thank you, Baba, all of us, Kenyans who should know that. That means I'm the father of all of us. And the father of all of us must first and foremost protect girls. Boaz Waruku is my name. I liked the papers. And I was really unhappy when the first one was cut short because it was getting to the gist. But I'm lucky that it will be shared. So, but of all the papers, you realize there's an aspect that for me still remains gray, has not been tackled sufficiently. We are dealing with aftermaths. We are dealing with aftermaths. But the policy, legislation, and institutional protection, to the extent that what we are dealing with, yes, we have to ensure that we make our girls safe all the time, and should any get pregnant, that they are able to get back to school. But I think there's the other side. We must make it very, very painful and expensive for somebody to impregnate our girls. We must show that we do not blink when something like that happens. I'm mentioning this because I've been a board chair of a school. Crazily enough, I became a board chair in a school, a high school, and I realized that they were negotiating issues of defilements. So when I put my foot down, only to be surprised that there are agents sent to the parents of the defiled girl, being told that we are paying you this, do not interfere with these teachers, because that was a teacher involved. Do not make this person lose the job, you know, that kind of a thing. So I'm saying, for me, I didn't blink. That teacher is interdicted as we speak. So what I'm saying is, when we make it so clear that never ever touch our girls, hands off, it becomes clear that anybody who attempts to do that would face the consequences. So I thought that it is good. All the researchers have really pointed us in the right direction. Indeed, it is good that we must ensure that we deal with the situation as they occur. I'm happy if there was a Tanzanian around. I saw Dr. Kalage. Oh yes, Dr. Kalage, thank you so much. Tanzania, I was pointing us because he was leading the network in Tanzania. That network ensured that when Magufuli, the president then, was pronouncing some very fake, crazy things, that the girls, once our girls were pregnant, you are not allowed to be back in school. I think they mounted very strong onslaught, and that one was reversed. And as we speak now, I think, I don't know, I hope they are improving on it. So basically what I'm trying to summarize and indicate is that it is good, yes, to ensure that our girls, those who somehow get pregnant and all that, find themselves out, must find a safe way back. And indeed, I think the aspect of protecting the little ones who have been born out of it should also be protected. But it is important to make it painful and be so clear that we'll never allow you to defile our girls. An Africa fit for the children, girls and boys. Thank you.
Isn't that a good male's voice? Yes, the papers were good, but there is a woman in the house who had a feeling like mine. For the gender balance, I will give her an opportunity to say this, because I realize what she was saying is equally what I would have said. Thank you.
My name is Janvier Ndirahisha. I'm Burundian, but I work in Uganda in a regional center which train people on the suppression and prevention of SGBV. And this regional training facility, it is an organ of ICGLA, the International Conference on Great Lakes Region. The headquarters are in Bujumbura. Just to inform you that in our center, we have different modules related to SGBV. And we have 12 countries. Among them we have Kenya, there are 12. And in each country, we have a minimum of 12 trainers that we have already trained, and they're mandated to cascade the trainings. But also, just to inform you that in Bujumbura, in the headquarters, there is a directorate on gender, women, and children. They have a special fund to help to create awareness of victims, also to support those girls who drop out school, to come back to school, or to do what they wish to do after. And in each country, we have what we call a national coordinator. He works in a ministry in charge of foreign affairs. So then you can contact him or you can contact me, and then I can give all information you need on SGPP. Thank you.
Let's clap for her. Yeah, the issue of gender-based violence strongly needs to be covered in these papers, isn't it? Because as countries, we have one major area that is affecting us. We have the triple threat. That is the adolescents and teenage pregnancies. We have the new cases of HIV/AIDS, and we have the gender-based violence. And for us in the school environment, we have the school-based gender violence. These issues, we are taking them by the horns. They must be arrested for our girls to have safe haven. Do you agree with me? So as we prepare, thank you for those who prepared papers in this area, but the triple threat must be taken by horns. It's not easy for girls who are pregnant in school. I'm from the examination monitoring. I have seen it all. I saw a girl who could not write her examination. She was in intensive labor. She only wrote her name. She could not write exam. That is how cruel it is. Very painful. I saw a girl who has just given birth and she's to write her examination. It is not easy because me as a grandmother who has gone through these processes, it is not easy. And I have heard the male voice in the house. We must arrest these cases and we must have a conversation with our girls. It has happened. Some of them, it is the entry point of their menstrual. First attempt, there you are. We must listen to them. Listen to these young women and give them support system. I like the background of Dr. Pempho of her paper. When it has happened to a woman, it is gone. Unless we give quality intervention to them. Thank you so much. I think we need to come to the end of this conversation. Bye-bye. Thank you. And clap for me. Hey, this conversation is continuing. Do we have time? Technical people? Can we give them more time? I thought I had closed.
It was at 12:30 normally. So
we still within the time.
We are in the time.
Within the time, I'm told to give to one lady and one man. I'm giving to this man and this lady. She's been persistent. So let me start with her.
Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Hope Wambi. I come from Uganda. I work with Raising Voices. I have two comments. One is this whole thing of terming teenage girls who have fallen pregnant as immoral is something that we have seen come out a lot. And even when it is subtle, it is not said. When you employ a gender lens in the kind of policies that we have, for example, on re-entry, in Uganda, you'll be told on mandatory taking leave for a girl at 3 months of pregnancy. The cover-up is the girl needs time to recover and give birth, but then they're trying to avoid the bump from showing. So how do we help all stakeholders to understand that it's not immoral that this child is pregnant, it is immoral that she was defiled. So that is one thing that I wanted to be highlighted. Then the second one is, when we look at the children who have fallen pregnant and they go back to school, many times we are fronting technical or alternative education, but we just want to emphasize that they still have a right to go through the formal education unless they think they cannot, so they are supported to look at the alternatives, but they still have a right to go through education like any other child. Thank you so much.
Just as I say, we listen to these girls, isn't it? That story they have, we can change it positive for the welfare of our girls.
Asante. I greet you all. Habari zenu. My name is Eric Ambuche, founder Slums Outreach Program, which is based in Mukuru kwa Njenga. We do empower youths through sustainable programs. I want to take this a rare opportunity to thank FAWE and other stakeholders. Education breaks barriers. And my CBO that we run in the slums of Mukuru kwa Njenga, which is the second largest slum in Kenya, there's a myriad of obstacles as far as girl-child education is concerned. Mukuru, as you know, is the epicenter of all the challenges on girl-child you can think of. Then, young mothers getting a second chance to education was an excellent idea. Unlike what the neighbors in Tanzania decided to do. And I want to use this platform to thank the current president of Tanzania, who quashed away the policy of the late President Magufuli, and she is giving the young mothers a second chance to education. I may say this, everybody is much concerned about girls getting pregnant. But I'll say this, it will be also be in order if together we put more efforts to address the causes or reasons that render them vulnerable. Like the place where I come from, because of time, it's a long story. I'll not go into that, but just know it's a long story. Then, how do we prepare the boys in those schools? And even the teachers, especially the ladies or madam. I remember in a certain school, name withheld, a madam teacher told one of the girl who was in Form 3 that wewe ujue ni mama, which translates to, you need to know that you are a mother. That was a teacher referring to a student in Form 3. In 2021, for those of you who watched KTN members of Corona, it is me who organized and identified parents and the girls who got pregnant through that enduring period. And my mentor here is telling me that those who went back to school, one of them scored a C+ recently, the 2022 KCSE. Then let's hold government departments or ministries responsible, the CSOs, the FAWE, and other organizations. Let's hold government departments responsible. A sub-county like where I come from, Embakasi South, has one public school, which is Embakasi Girls Secondary School. The whole sub-county, you can imagine, with a population of 300,000 people. In January 2023, KCP, those who had performed in 2022, KCP performed astoundingly well. And because of the corona and the inhuman demolitions that happened in Mukuru, their parents were unable to take them to transition or Form 1. I identified 200 of them and reached to Citizen TV. I know you might have watched the story on Citizen TV early January. And as we sit here, more than 50 girls and boys join various national secondary schools through well-wishers and several organizations. As you know, you have heard of Wings to Fly, you have heard of Jomo Kenyatta Foundation, but in our sub-county, applications were made like 1,500, but those who got that chance were like 92. So, as an organization or a CBO, I'm appealing if the government or you, the stakeholders, can come in my initiative where we intend to have our own kitty to consider the Mukuru children. As I finish, on 2nd December, there will be a launch in Mukuru called, dubbed Keep Mukuru Bright Students in Secondary School, so that we publicize the concept. I urge you, nawaomba, karibuni, welcome all. Asanteni sana.
I can see the sugar levels are down. You want to add a voice for men? I am only going to give that man, that man, and him. It's just preference for men now. Him, and then he will finalize. Because I know it is a conversation that is endless.
This is a unique voice, given that it's of a man, and secondly, is of a FAWE alumni, who also happens to come from a border. And my concern from the two papers, it lacks issues. The discussant didn't have so much on the cross-border issues. Yes, in Kenya, we do have a firm laws against all those aspects. But the question is, when we are bordering the Ethiopia side, or the Somali side, how are we going to intervene? Last night, I happened to get a call from my wife. She calls and tells me, you know what? There is a chief who has impregnated a girl, and he has disappeared into the Ethiopian side. And on the Ethiopian side, the community mechanism is much stronger than the legal mechanisms. So how do we come up with papers that are able to address the inter-border issues that face these girls? Then secondly, as she addressed, how do we develop more rescue centers? Because to some extent, girls will want to run away. But where are you running to? Girls would want to look for safe havens. But where is that? Like in the whole of region, from all the border, from the Somali region, Somalia and Kenya borders each other almost 700 kilometers. Then Ethiopia and Kenya is almost another 1,000 plus. And all those are regions where teenage pregnancies and child marriage is just over 70%. So therefore, I would want to see more on that areas. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Can we clap for him? Ignorance is no defense when it comes to law, isn't it? Let us collaborate in the multi-sectoral. Let us collaborate in the multi-sectoral. Even as we look at safe havens for our girls, we should ask ourselves, and that question was in the main hall, the sustainability of the program, isn't it? Those homes need funding, and they need human resource. They need a lot of things. They need, name them. But as we come up with the program, are they self-sustainable? Very important. And two, there is a policy on abuse of people sexually, isn't it? Sexual Offense Act, isn't it? How many of you are aware in Kenya that there is? And I think there is harsh punishment in this area as the male voice, the first male voice was talking. The challenge sometimes we have is that we are not reading policy document and also know how to engage. Another area is that we know, but how do we action? I think we should shift from just knowing and knowing how to action. And I think NGO world is very smart in this area. Clap for them. Let us leverage on their practices on actioning, isn't it? Coming up with the plans to action. And I think it will really help us. I want to take this opportunity because we don't have time. I had closed this meeting. Thank you, our discussant from Zambia. It's okay, thank you. We are very late, so I am giving to this gentleman whom I said would be last so that he can make an announcement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you can clap for her, right? I see that you guys had a good conversation, and this is just the beginning because the work that we have to do is there on the field. So I encourage everyone to keep talking, but more acting. Thank you so much. So I have quick informations about the launch. So we have a side event that is a working launch that you can see in your program with UNESCO. So people who want to participate at that side event, it's on Massue on the 3rd floor. But you have to take